Yeah. Um, what are you like? What do you affiliate with? Like, are you a liberal, conservative?
Uh, I'm on the left. I don't really have any definitive term. I'm less of a statist, I guess. More of a left wing libertarian.
Okay. Don't you think the left is taking us down a path we shouldn't be going?
No, not
Like
necessarily.
historically, according to this country and this constitution?
Exactly what do you mean by that? Because when it comes to the Constitution, I feel like most leftists are pretty. They think it's pretty good for the most part, like the Bill of Rights and stuff like that.
I mean, when it comes to something like freedom of speech, you think they're for that anymore?
Yeah,
Do
for the
you see?
most part, yeah. I mean, I would say like probably right off the bat, we're gonna have to come up with the distinction between liberals and uh, leftists because liberals, on the most part, are a little different. They're a little bit more pro uh, big daddy government than the average leftist would be. Most leftists,
Yeah.
honestly, are more pro free speech than really more than anyone else, especially those on the right, especially those on the far right.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you disagree with how the social media is being run right now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Lord knows I go through my shit on social media of getting banned and all of that. But that's private companies. There's nothing like inherently we can do with the government to do that because for some reason we just let the private companies do their thing.
See, that's something we could disagree on because I don't think it's just the private companies doing that because they move in a unison. There's someone, there's some type of agenda, and it's kind of hard to assume that all these CEOs have the same agenda, but they apparently do. So it just leads you to think that maybe someone is working with them. And then if you look at articles, if you try to research into that a little bit, it shows that it's the left and not the right. So I think there is someone in the government controlling them and moving them in certain directions.
Okay, but is it really the government doing it, or is it the companies just doing the baseline thing of what companies always do, which is trying to maximize profits? And most people in America being inherently more likely to be susceptible to messages on the left, companies are going to try to cater to those people more and put those within their guidelines. I think it's more of just like
Yeah,
that's how it works out. I don't think there's any like shadowy cabal or any government interference with it. I think it's just companies trying to placate to the crowd. Just like how you see more inclusive ads on TV, it's companies trying to reach out to newer demographics to, show like, hey, we are progressive. Buy Coke, you
well,
know?
when it comes to that, there's an organization that looks at your how progressive you are as a company, and if you're not on that list, you're gonna go to shit.
Yeah, but that's
And
more of
it's
just discriminatory hiring practices rather than what they sell and how they promote it and stuff like that. I know what you're talking about, and like that's more of like an affirmative action type of thing, which is to
yeah.
kind of placate the fact that most companies still do the dumb thing of just like, oh, he's got a ethnic sounding name. He
Mhm.
possibly can't be fit for this job.
That's the thing about it, though. They try to bring in someone that's let's say they try to bring in someone that's Muslim for an ad, right? And it seems cool and all, but at the end of the day, there's not that many Muslims in America, for example. So it shows that the companies are not doing it for the money. It's there's some type of agenda going on where they have to push a certain narrative. And
I
I
mean,
could
but
give
the
you an
biggest
example
demographic
for
within America is like the white liberal. So they're gonna see that,
Mhm.
and as white liberals tend to do, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's so sweet and so inclusive. I will go
Yeah.
buy Nike sneakers. I will do that." You know?
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. But I could give you an example of when Mark Zuckerberg said that the FBI had contacted him to tell him to take down the Biden laptop story. That's a whole thing that they took from the left. That it was the left that was talking to them to do something against the right. Because if you help the left, you're working against the right. And another example is the Hillary emails that was also scrubbed from the internet. That's another thing where it's obvious that they have a side. I don't want to say certain words like they're helping them or they're working with them because who knows. But the companies seem to have a side in general.
Well, I'm going to say if you think
Wouldn't you
the
agree with that?
FBI is on the side of the left, you are very sorely mistaken, considering that left-wing activists and politicians and
So
people in this country are way more targeted by government interactions than anyone in the
so
center
why
or
would
the
the
right.
FBI so why would the FBI go tell Mark Zuckerberg to do that?
Because the Hunter Biden laptop thing is largely used as conspiracy fuel for QAnon. And if you have any idea with what QAnon has done, will do, and is
That's
basically
fine.
about, is they use that to fuel, this is why we need to kill these people. It's one
Yeah,
thing like if
yeah.
it's a
That's
normal
a
conspiracy theory. I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are ultimately harmless, but there are some that have led to way more harm than it's worth, and that's one of them. Do I think
I
like
agree
Hunter
with that.
Biden's a shitty person and that all that stuff is true? Yeah, I do. But like, am I just gonna be like putting that shit out there? No, because then that's gonna be
But
like giving like proof to these QAnoners as like, oh, see, that's true. Therefore, this is why I need to bomb this judge's house. There we go. That's it. You know.
okay, yeah, but that's if you use that same way of thinking, then anything could be used as fuel. The whole thing with Trump, when Trump was in office and all this fake stuff coming out against him, all of that was fuel. You could say all of that stuff could be used as fuel for the left, but
What
then it
what
was
kind of
all
fake
fine.
stuff?
I mean, for the Russian collision, for example,
But didn't that get found out that there was collusion?
there there wasn't. They
Uh,
found out there wasn't.
they found out that there was
Why
not
why
directly with Trump.
they
However, there
why they
was
let him?
collusion with people within the Trump campaign with Russia, including good old Donnie Jr.
Yeah, but that wasn't the narrative. And if you was following politics and in the news at that time, you know that wasn't the narrative.
I
You know
mean, I
that
was,
at that
except I
time
was on
it
Trump's
wasn't.
side back then.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not even on Trump's side, but I'm just looking at things. I'm observing things. I'm not on Biden's side. I'm not.
Yeah, no,
But that's
I
the thing about it.
I was on
Go ahead.
Trump's side back then, so I was like looking at all that, and that was one of the things where I was like, oh shit, oh, oh, okay, uh oh.
But everybody was waiting on Trump to get impeached because supposedly they was all saying that he was colluding with Russia,
I mean, that was the
and none of
initial
that.
statement, and although the flat out, headline statement was found to be false, there was still proof
Yeah,
of collusion within the Trump campaign. And like the whole thing of like
yeah. I
why
mean, we
Biden
could.
is an illegitimate leader because of what his son does, we can very much say the same thing about Trump because of what good old Donnie Jr. did with Russia. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not attacking anybody's character. I'm not talking about the characters of Biden or Trump. I'm just saying that the media at the time, you could see that the media was pushing a narrative, and it wasn't against any type of fueling against the right. But now it's like they flipped, right? And even before when the left was in office, they were still helping Hillary with her emails, with her a bunch of things. So
I
it's
mean, there's
they
no
even
doubt
turned her
about there's
against.
no doubt in my mind that the parties and the people in politics and all of that are corrupt. That is 100% true, including with
Yep,
Hillary and all of that. And you're going to find
both of them, both
hypocrisies
sides,
across that. But
both sides are corrupt.
yeah, they're both corrupt. But I'm going to say this.
But the media is siding with the left, and that's my point.
Yeah, but if we're going to talk about like the whole Hunter Biden versus the Trump collusion, the Hunter Biden stuff inspires death and terrorism and more attacks than the Trump thing ever did. You can find out about like all these QAnon conspiracy theorists going off the deep end. I mean, there was just a story like a few weeks ago to a month ago about like a guy who killed his whole family over that because he got really deep into these conspiracy theories. And there's like
That's yeah,
stuff because of that. You can't really find that about like people who wore like the little pink cat hats, who are like Hillary should have won, Trump colluded. You can't really
yeah.
find it with them.
That's the thing because those people, you're always gonna have people with mental illnesses or some kind of problems in their lives, where they feel like they need to belong in some type of circle. And those people, you might say those people are not really part of society because the way they think, the way they observe is not accepted. But then the pink-haired people, that society is reinforcing everything you think. The government is reinforcing it. Media is reinforcing it. There's no reason for you to go out and do any type of bad terrorism or anything like that. But the right, it's yeah, it does attract of um a lot of people that have problems already. That's the thing about it. And if we think about America, there's a huge chunk of people that have problems, mental problems. So when you go in and you delve into all this crazy shit and you delve into it too much, you start to panic. And I remember when I was like 14, I was looking at all this Obama stuff and North Korea's about to nuke us and all these conspiracy theories. I was telling my mom, I was like, we gotta get out of America. But it doesn't turn out to be true. And I was young. But those people, they needed to feel like they belong in something. I'm not saying it's right, of course, but you have to look at why that's happening. Those people are outlawed from society. They can't speak on any other social media. They can't. So that's why they run to 4chan or whatever the fuck. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I was just saying like all of that to prove like to why the Hunter Biden stuff gets taken down because it's a really fringe thing that ultimately means nothing to politics, other than
It
saying
means a lot, though.
other than
It does
saying
mean a lot.
politicians are corrupt. Everyone knows that at that point, and it doesn't
Well,
really
no, it's
prove
not just
anything. It's like Hunter
politicians.
Biden is a deviant who like does all of this. Sure, I guess, but then you
But
putting
that's the
that out
son of
there
the
to
president. He's not just a politician. And that's the thing about
again, what
America
about
is
the
it's going
Donnie
down in
Jr.
a
stuff? You can show all of that,
what
but no
Donnie
one
Jr.
dies at the end of the day when you show that. The other one, people do. That's why I'm saying that's why it gets taken down because it's shown to be harmful and invokes violence. When the other one doesn't. And why,
Yeah, but that's the
why the right wing attracts more, crazies than the left wing, we can get into a thing on that. But what I'm saying is like the
uh
reason why certain, right wing conspiracy theories are targeted more than left wing conspiracy theories is because right wing conspiracy theories tend to harm way more people. They draw way more targets on other people's backs than left wing ones. The left wing ones, they're like, let's say like, the communist conspiracy theory of like, oh, rich people control everything because they're rich and all of that. Wow. Okay, what are you going to do? Attack rich people with their dozens of armed guards? Probably not. They're probably just going to be like, oh, whatever. A right wing
well, no,
conspiracy
but you
theory about the same
have to
thing says
understand.
almost similar stuff, except they'll say that's because the rich people are rich because they're Jewish. And then all of a sudden, you see a massive rise in anti-Semitism because people were like, "Oh, the Jews are bad." You see,
There
like
was
how it's
always
similar stuff, but one kind of just
anti-Semitism,
goes
though.
further. You know?
It does. It does. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but say for something like anti-Semitism, there's always been anti-Semitism. So that's a thing that's already always been a thing. It's always going to come back in history for whatever reason. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah,
But
but
for
shouldn't
whatever
we? But
reason, it
shouldn't
always
we?
comes back.
Try to
Always comes
minimize
back to
that.
that. But that's the thing. When you give the power to the social media companies to minimize things, that's when you mess up because they have their own way of thinking. They're still humans.
Well,
They
would you rather the
still
government
have
be
their
in
own
charge
way
of
of
that?
thinking. So that's why they go after certain. Well, no, that's the thing about it. That's why I was saying in the beginning. If you think the left is taking us on a path where we shouldn't be going, because America's supposedly supposed to be about freedom, right? Freedom of
Well,
speech, freedom about
see,
everything.
so you don't like the private
It
companies
became
doing
it came
that for
to a point.
profit. So you don't
I
like
don't like
the
anyone
private
doing
companies
that.
are doing
We're
it for
supposed to be a
profit.
free country.
Well,
The private
morals.
companies are not doing it for profit. The private companies are following orders. They're just
Okay, so
in a
if
mindset of, okay, we're working with the government and certain people of the government. We never see them work against the liberals. We never see that. Why does that never happen? You telling me there's not one thing that liberals do bad
I
that
mean,
social media should go after? Not one thing. I mean, we could talk about how they're always sexualizing children on apps. They don't care about that.
I can't really
That's a way
defend
bigger problem
TikTok. We
than
we don't really have control on
it's
TikTok
not
since
just on
that's
TikTok, it's on everything. It's on Instagram, it's on everything.
all right. But if we're gonna talk about the
It's not a thing
sexualization,
of just
if we're gonna
specific
all right,
app. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah, no, I'm talking. I know
Delve into any
what you're talking
specific.
about. It's just like the sexualization
Yeah.
of children. That's not inherent to really any political party. Sure, you get like the
No, it's not.
liberals like
But they don't try to
cuties,
stop
but
it.
well, no one's really going
They
to try to stop it because again, it
they
gets
don't try to
clicks,
stop it.
profits.
That's
In a capitalist
that's
system, you can't really
that's
have
the thing about it.
morals because morals get trumped out
You
by
don't think
profits.
conspiracy theories get clips?
Say that again?
You don't think conspiracy theories get clicks? I say you don't think conspiracy theories will get clicks?
No, they do. And that's why there are certain
Okay.
places where the whole thing they do is conspiracy theory. This is why you get 4chan boards
Exactly.
about it, all stuff like that.
But if it was but if
But
it
they don't
was
get
companies
near
like you're
as
saying that
many
it's worried about
clicks.
clicks,
It's like
that's
iFunny.
what
Why iFunny had its downfall when it stopped moderating as much as it did because it used to have a much
but
larger
there's
user base.
still
But ad companies did not want to be associated with some of the debauchery that was happening on that app. Therefore, the app
yeah.
kind of just went, downhill, and the app's not doing great compared to what it was. It's like why
Hmm.
YouTube, when they had more edgy content, and then all of a sudden, hey, ad companies didn't want to be associated with that edgy content anymore because they felt like it would harm their brand. So they pulled out. So YouTube tightened the belt. It's stuff like that.
But that's the thing about it. They if they sit here and they could tell us what's right and what's wrong and what's a conspiracy theory and what's not. Do you think that still makes us in a country of freedom of speech?
Well, again, we live in a capitalist country, so if the private
Yeah,
companies get to do whatever
but
they
that's the
want,
thing.
you really can't argue that. I think it's
If
wrong
it's just
personally,
about
but
clicks,
we can't. There's not
if it's
shit
just
we could do
about
about it
clicks,
other than nationalize the private, nationalize Instagram or something.
but that's what I'm saying. You can't tell me all these big companies have the same mind. Wow, how come they all think the same exact way?
Well, the bigger
Is
ones
it
more or
just
less
they
do, and that's why
just
they're
so happen?
bigger. The smaller ones
No,
don't, and that's why they're smaller. Like I said,
yeah, I'm
iFunny was
talking about the big
projected to
ones.
be one of the larger apps because hey, it's got a nice, user interface. It had a big fan base. It had like a lot of people like using it because people liked memes. But then it just didn't moderate its content like it did, and then the big advertisers pulled out, and the app kind of fell into obscurity, and is now it's a right wing cesspool. Same with like a bunch of
Yeah.
other websites and all of that. That's why Gab will never get any big advertisers other than the shit that they you know cater for already.
Have you been banned from stuff like Reddit or whatever, from subreddits or stuff like that?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I've been
So
I've been banned from a lot
yeah,
of shit.
so if you've been banned, then you know that the companies it's ridiculous now. You say
Yeah,
something
no.
about Russia, you're banned. That's what I'm saying. That's why I started it with they're taking us down a path that's not good. Right now it might not seem as terrible or horrible, but it is going down the same terrible path of no freedom, no ability to talk about what you want to talk about and still have some type of monetization and be on YouTube or be on Reddit or Twitter, all the big apps where you could have or you're more accessible to have a big audience. You're not allowed to talk about a lot of things,
Yeah, but that's all
and a
because it
lot of it has
hurts
nothing to
the
do
advertising potential of
with
the
the right.
platform.
That's the thing
That's
about
why
it.
it
You think those
happens.
advertisers care? You think the advertisers care about what they're advertising aside from the money they make from advertising the video?
I mean,
Yeah, now they do. Now they care, and that's my point. Why do they care now? Why
because
has
you
it become
remember when
such a problem now?
PewDiePie,
And we're all rallied.
do you remember when PewDiePie like said the N word on a stream? Well,
Yeah.
McDonald's or not McDonald's, Coke specifically got very upset about that because they were, their ads were playing a lot in PewDiePie videos, so they pulled out of
Hmm.
YouTube, and YouTube was like, "Oh shit, that's one of our biggest guys to fund this platform.
Yeah.
We gotta tighten the
But
belt on
that's a
shit like
little extreme.
PewDiePie."
That's a little extreme because now it's racism. I'm talking
Well,
about
then
just
then
saying your
that's not
opinion
even.
about things
But see, what you're saying has
without
nothing to do
going
with the
extreme.
government or anything like that. It's all about markets and advertising and society as a whole. Companies want to maximize their profits, so they're going to go for the largest base possible. And hate to break it to a lot of people, but conservatives and right wingers are not the large advertising base. It's going to be white liberals. It's going to be people in cities. And it's just going to be like left ish people in general or center people in general. That's why
Yeah,
companies tend to go more towards that.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like I said, it's not anything to do with the government. And even then, when it comes to like these social media companies doing stuff like that, there's not much solutions I can really think of that don't just ultimately lead down to nationalizing social media, which I do not want to any degree because then we end up with shit like China. Fuck that.
I have a perfect solution and take us back to the time before Trump, because that's I think it all started with Trump. I think they used Trump to crack down, really crack down with this stuff. But before Trump, it wasn't this bad at all. I don't even think it was anything close to this bad. But then after Trump, they were like, okay, see, everybody, look, he's terrible. People are bad. So now you gotta allow us to. And people were okay with it because people hated Trump. And why did people hate Trump? Because of the media. And a lot of the shit that they were saying, it turned out to not be true. And that thing about it, it's they started cracking down ever since then. So my solution would be take us back to the time before Trump, where they didn't have a huge hand in everything we do and everything we see and say.
Well, again, it's because more companies are getting more and more online. You're seeing more and more ads online versus in TV. So, again, companies do what companies do and they try to get more and more profits.